Hey, okay, so Travis Hendrix, we've been unpacking who you are, how you became, talk about KGA, a little trivia. Travis, you're very methodical in how you think about architecture and the psychology of architecture and the interpersonal feelings of spaces. And so I want to talk to you a little bit about your approach to how you take on some of those things and how the psychology of spaces. Right?
Yeah. I've been really pursuing it since I started going down this career path.
Yeah.
And there's a few different things that connected over the years for me that really built up into my current knowledge set. So, ironically, the first book I read on architecture, you get like your class list, you're going into your first semester. And one of the first books I read was a book called The Architecture of Happiness. And it's written by a French gentleman by the name of Alain de Botton. But it just really spoke to me when it started talking about how space feels and, how you can get warm fuzzies from, this old, beautiful house and specific rooms, and told stories about how people connect emotionally with architecture. Yeah. And it really was one of the most significant books I had read, and it was very early in my career, and just getting an education, not even career, and really shaped kind of some of that mindset. So over the years, with more exposure of like reading a pattern language was really important to me, because that connected how people were building over. And this writer, Christopher Alexander, has some rather poetic and philosophical takes on the meaning of how this all connects together in the long run. And then eventually then working for Don, and he was really into neuroscience and figuring out some of that. And really the big key element there is a question of, why do people walk into some spaces or homes and everybody starts talking about how beautiful it is? And then why are you sometimes, at that housewarming of the new home, and you never hear the word beautiful, but it might be replaced with where it's like exciting, thrilling, cool, and what's the difference there? And why does that happen in certain ways? So Don had done a lot of research and over those recent years, and there's been a lot more that's been coming out. And it distills a lot into really just kind of our base humanity of why we are responding this way to space. And by taking that into account, you can kind of hard code into architecture a more pleasant response to being in that space. And you can also hard code it for it to be more adrenaline inducing. And there are different programs that have uses for that, right? Like, it might be good for a home gym, to be a more adrenaline-inducing environment, right? Because you're already doing that as you're working out. So having that, part of that being a thrill, maybe that makes sense. Do you really need to be adrenaline-induced when you're trying to go to bed at night? No. Or if you're in your sitting room reading a book? You need it to be warm and cozy and fuzzy. So really what kind of that basis of really kind of how we're wired this way is a lot of our, we have what we call like ancient brain. So our brain has lots of different parts, and then we have kind of our brain stem, and that's been with humans the longest, right? Like, as we've grown and adapted and changed over the years, over centuries, over millennia, that's still been the root, and that's tied to our nervous system. And there's two branches to our nervous system. We have the sympathetic and the parasympathetic. The sympathetic is attached to our fight or flight response, adrenaline, cortisol, all that. The parasympathetic is tied to our feelings of comfort and shelter and beauty and relaxation and safety, right? So there's security there. And really what we're finding is based on people's environments, we can trigger the sides of the brain in different ways to start impacting your body at a neurological and biological level, which is pretty weird to think about sometimes.
No, I mean, we're hungry. We have appetites for certain reasons. Our bodies are telling us we need something.
Yeah.
Right. Our bodies are telling us, hey, we need to be in a safe place, or we need to be, that's in us.
Yeah. And it always has been because it was part of our survival.
Yeah.
Right. So a lot of this is rooted in how it relates to nature. Right. Because at first humans were living out of caves or finding places that were safe. And we've seen that there's a lot of topic on biophilia. When I was in school and in the human factor psychology side, we talked about how pretty much all humans have agoraphobia, which is a fear of wide open spaces. Yeah. But you think about it, when you're early humans, coming out into the Bronze Age or whatever, a big wide open space leaves you vulnerable to predators, right? Hunter-gatherer doesn't want to go walk out into that meadow because this big animal could spot them and get them. So those places that you feel safer are going to be when you're not there. And then if you're out in that field, you might actually be more adrenaline induced because you need to be aware of that situation or something like that. So yeah, it's pretty fascinating. And
so with that, the architecture of this space versus the design of this space, what would take trump? Is it the interior design aesthetics, or is it the architectural, actually the spatial?
So it can kind of be both. The nature of the space, like that backbone on the architectural side, really is kind of sets everything. So no matter how you dress it up with interiors, you can't really fix it. Unless it's like, hey, you design a glass box, people feel uncomfortable in it. Interior designer designs in a drape pocket and shades, and the shades stay closed all the time because you don't want to be out in a windowed box. So there's layers in there about how it works, and there's a lot of different methods of research that are coming out. Like 3M has an eye tracking software. So, it will show an image and then it will track what people are looking at. And of course, it's great for people doing marketing because they're trying to figure out at this advertisement, what are people going to look at? And it's funny, you can show a space and the highest areas that people look at are the plants in the picture right away. Like humans just seek out nature and plant life. But there's certain patterns that people are brought to. That they are drawn to, and it makes them feel good. And so that's what Don was writing in his book on neuroscience and architecture. And that's kind of like the distilled, one of the hard and fast is certain patterns, basic proportions will trigger different response. And that's really based on a few different things. But before we get into what that pattern is, I wanted to do some nature things to help frame it. So I'm going to show you some pictures, and you have to think about how it makes you feel.
Okay.
So the brain takes in, every second, takes in 1 million pieces of information every second, something like that. We're able to process 3 of that. These are not exact numbers, but that's how big of the discrepancy kind of is. So you think about it as each follicle of hair on your arm is moving based on different temperatures, right? We're inputting so much information that it's actually hard for you to kind of get through. So before we do this, it's kind of good to take a couple deep breaths.
Is this
make sure you can feel your feet.
A personality test?
No, but it will kind of feel like it a little bit.
Judge me on if I get it wrong.
Okay. How does that make you feel?
Safe, whimsical, and alive.
Yeah, and it's just pretty. I want to drive down that road. You want to see it in the fall. So tree canopies are protection and shelter for us. That we recognize that right away. The idea of enclosure. We have something at the end that's part of a view, but it's and you can see
alive.
and it's alive. Yeah, Tree Alley is historically one of the most beautiful things you can put into any kind of landscape architecture scheme, right? Like, there's a reason we create these things and enjoy them, right? We seek them out.
Mm-hmm. Tree Alley. Okay.
Yeah. How does that make you feel?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I'm not a snake guy.
Most humans are programmed not to like venomous snakes.
He has a blue tongue. That's a little interesting. So here's a true story. I've lived in Colorado my whole life. Mm-hmm. Everybody tells me they see rattlesnakes. I go hunting. I go hiking. I've been outdoors.
Never seen one?
Never seen one.
Wow.
And I'm scared. I'm like, I don't want to see one. But I mean, I go hiking with my dogs. We go all over, 3-day hikes through the mountains.
Well, you got lucky because they're scary.
Yeah, and they're all over Colorado.
So that's a fear and danger response, right?
Yes. So that's my
So that's
parasympathetic.
That's your sympathetic is the fear, and the parasympathetic is the first one, right? So and these are just easy ones to relate to emotion. You're like, immediately, I don't like this. So then the next two are a two-part that kind of help you start feeling kind of like, think about how both goes on, right? Like,
beautiful, fresh. My back's going to hurt when I have to stand up from the picnic.
Don't want to have to drive home after the wine.
Exactly.
And then this happens.
Yeah. I'm not afraid of weather.
No. Well, you're under a tree there too.
That might scare you more, but I think I'm more like the ocean.
Yeah.
If this was like on the ocean, there was a big wave.
Yeah.
My flight response would be much higher.
Yeah.
This would be like, okay, let's see where this goes. Let's keep watching.
That's because we're mixing both here. You're like, well, does that storm come into me? But you're also kind of thinking like, what would I do if it does a downpour? Yeah. Do I have an umbrella?
Yeah.
So those are all like the cognitive things of like what you're going to react to that space. And then here was like a couple photos I was illustrating, like in a lot of architecture these days, we put out these pictures and you see it and it's covered in greenery. I can't, you kind of clipped off here, but even they modeled a fake building that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
But
your eye goes right to the living space in the structure.
And it makes the whole building look and feel so cool and grand. And now this is it, just freshly built.
Yeah.
Don't really get the same thing. You look at the canyon in there and some of the organic shapes.
The inspiration and the buildability of different things. You don't always get it.
Yeah.
This will be cool when it grows out.
Yeah.
But, I mean,
if it grows out like that, though.
Yeah. This is like luxury glass, shiny, sparkly. This is, we see the window frames. It's not quite the same, but.
We're just like adding plants to everything to try and trigger this in people. Because that's the marketing rendering. We're like, oh, this is cool. We're selling this. Mm-hmm. And then they're having a really hard time leasing that building up.
Where's this at?
That's in Rhino. Okay. It's like One River North.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Big project, high profile, hasn't been very well received.
Yeah.
Some of it's the stucco color selection, and some of it's the greenery hasn't grown in.
Oh, yeah. That white looks so much better.
Yeah, they went with this like yellowy tone that
makes it look a little like,
just kind of like dated.
Yeah,
the color.
Funny.
So anyway, those were just like quick examples of how you react to things. But really, what Don was looking at is there is on the architecture on the base side for humans, we are genetically set up to seek out a pattern from birth. And that pattern is the human face. But what an infant sees is two dark spots and another dark spot, right? Their vision is super blurry, but you get three dark spots. And you think about it, like you're a kid in elementary school, the first house you draw this house and you're like, how come I drew a face on this house? Right?
Yeah.
But it's because we're doing this, we're programmed to do it. We're all doing this. And that organization is a grid that's set up in 3 parts horizontally and 3 parts vertically. And that grid we can find built into everything, these 9 organization things. It doesn't have to be symmetrical, it doesn't have to be squares, but we'll find that in all architecture across the world, and all of the most beautiful, right? Like we have the 7 most beautiful things in the world, or 7, I forget what they call 7 wonders
of the world.
The Taj Mahal, the Forbidden City in China, Hanging Gardens, Babylon, which I think we just theoretically know what they look like. The Acropolis. All of these things are built into those same parts. You can find that grid and organizational pattern in all of these. And in fact, when I started working for Don in his book, he had a diagram of the Forbidden City as like the elevation of it. And I was like, when I went there, we stood in front of the main doors, and the doors were built into 9 panels also.
Oh.
And our Chinese guide that was with us, who was also a teacher, he talked about how the 9 was like a really big number in their culture historically. And I was thinking about it, I was like, man, that's so interesting, because what's really big in Western culture is 3, which is just a derivative of it. So the 9 can be turned into fractals in different parts. So that's where it's like we're starting to really feather things up, and it can be kind of abstract, and you can execute it in any style. But we find that in a lot of traditional historical architecture, because that lineage was people building up as a story of humanity, right?
Yeah.
We hit the modern movement, and unfortunately, some of the theory in there, we got some modernists screaming from a rooftop saying, abandon tradition. And, in their defense, they were thinking predominantly of new building techniques, integrating steel, using concrete, all these new uses that they were finding of construction, and also thinking of economy. But it also led to a lot of people kind of whitewashing away tradition, and it becoming more of ostracized a lot in the educational realm too. We kind of lost a little bit of that lineage because people kept trying to pursue this original thought. But taking it back, you can execute all of this in the same format. So here's a real simple image that demonstrates kind of that 3x3 grid and how that feels. Right? It's easy to imagine that some of those classical traditional forms are organized in that way for a reason. But this is one of the homes that we did as a remodel. And let me get you. So that front elevation is...
So I just went straight to the trees, though.
Yeah, of course. Right.
Your patterns of 3 are here, here, and here. Is that...
And then it goes vertical. And then a big part of that pattern is right down the center of where the entry is. So that approach and, the house front there is really pleasing.
So that's why people say that's good architecture. And you don't know why.
Yeah, I mean,
because it resonates comfort with their ancient brain.
Yeah, there's a lot of extra layers to make something great architecture. But when you mind the basic composition and start framing your mind in the pattern and how it's coming together, that becomes a really strong foundational principle. And then you just kind of bring it up from there with material and texture and how are you feeling? How big is that overhang? Is it... But you could execute that in a million different materials and it would still feel good.
So how would you mess this up? Because I was just thinking, if this went way up here.
Yeah,
right?
A lot of it is if those parts start to break apart and they're not working as a whole.
Yeah.
That would make it fall apart really quickly. If certain parts drifted off, if this was moved over here and then the proportion, that relationship wasn't balanced, it doesn't have to be symmetrical, but if those small things make drastic impacts on how the architecture is perceived.
So, because I can see how the architectural space design, right? You got to create the box, and you want to create the box to allow for the natural light, right? Because if there's a room with natural light, I don't care how pretty the designer makes it, it's going to feel different.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You could take the same thing, but so the architecture can influence that.
So connection to outdoors, being able to see, and those are the extra layers, right, on neuroscience, like the biophilia of like, are we connecting to nature? Right? Do you have a long and short range of vision out of all the views? Are you intentionally setting this up on a site so that it's an enjoyable experience to come up to it? And I should have taken I guess I didn't take an aerial of that other project. But we have a tree alley. We have two. We have an owner entry that goes to a drive court and like a primary. And the way that the house is sited on this long peninsula-shaped property, you come down the street and you'll kind of experience coming around the corner and there's trees and tennis court, that fencing, like all this is screening it. And then you get down the street and then the architecture begins to reveal itself. And then you come turn around back into it. So you go oblique and come back, and that procession up to the house tells a story and a narrative and makes that experience really significant too for anybody driving up to it. So there's a lot to connect to it, but at that base level, I do a lot of this 3x3 grid of talking with people, and our staff. Have you had some good team members? They're like, I was like, all right, yeah, throw this part together, and they're like, yeah, well, I tried to put it into threes, and then and I'm like, this is great, but we need to tweak this window height. Let's tighten this up a little bit, and you just kind of use that as a way to kind of create a foundation for yourself, and then you kind of work from there. And it makes a big difference.
It's an interesting how you're communicating. I talk with a lot of architects and they kind of tell me their philosophies and stuff. And some of them are, it really starts with sight and the nature and the layout and the views. But this is not a perspective I have heard before. So it's pretty intriguing. It really is.
Yeah, I mean, siting is where you start. Paul and I always talk about site specificity. Like we want to do site specific design. To me, that I want, if given the opportunity, I mean, like if you're doing an infill lot in Denver on a flat parcel of land, there's not a lot to say like, oh, this feels like it's part of the land or has always been here, but when you're working on larger project sites, the goal is that even if it's new, that when you approach it, that it feels like it always has been there and always should have been there, that it's part of that site, that it integrates with the lands. You're not tearing up the entire site to make this work or doing a cut and fill, but not figuring out how to make all the levels work. So it's like a 12-foot retaining wall 10 feet from your house, you're like, that's not a great view. So that's fundamentally important. And then when you get into the individual architecture of like, what does it look like? How does it work? I'm always going back to that language of neuroscience and how it can make people feel. Because that's really the thing is I want people to get their dream homes. That's number one, right? That's why they hire you. To help them create their custom dream home. And then the other layer is I want them to be comfortable in that space and be happy. And that the high level finishes, some, buying the extra cool windows, over time that will fade. But like having the perfect reading room or the perfect living room or kitchen where you just feel at home, that every time you go on vacation, even in the most beautiful places, you can't wait to be back at your comfortable home. Like that's the goal for me because that's the give back in architecture where you can really impact people.
I want you to design a home for me.
I'm going to be happy.
That'd be so fun. No, I live in a 1987 split level in Louisville that
there you go.
I've added on to and I've made it great, but I still can't fix the basement.
Yeah, you can never fully fix a split level. I grew up in a bi-level.
Now mine has 3 levels because I went over the garage and I'm just like, it works, but I go in my basement and I'm just like, my daughter's got bedrooms down there. I'm like, this place just feels horrible.
Yeah, I grew up. Well, and our living space was down there. There were some perks where it's like you get extra light for it being in a basement, but there's something about garden level living that doesn't feel good. And I had a garden level apartment once in grad school. There's just, I don't know what it is.
I'm not quite above the dirt.
Yeah,
the ground.
It's
hard.
Yeah.
So
it's hard to make right. I mean, it's nice, like when you think about a basement with lots of light, that's nice.
Yeah.
But it's like you're still hanging out in the basement. I don't know. Yeah. That is a conundrum.
It is. Well, let's look at some other pictures, and you can give me your psychoanalysis of the psychology of the.
I'm not an expert.
Brain.
I don't claim to be a crazy expert, but I'm super interested in it.
We built a lot of homes over the past couple of years, and they're all custom. And I think different architects, and some of them I walk into, I'm like, yeah, they got a house. And I'm like, something doesn't, like this feels off, or this architect, I was like, oh man, this feels really good. Like, they're all great, but you can feel the difference.
Yeah, like, and it's like it's not just like an emotional feeling.
Yeah.
It's like a physical feeling. Like you're like, there's some, like, I just feel so good right now and relaxed, and you're not tense. I mean, that's always what, if given the opportunity, I'm always seeking out for a client. Every now and then you have a client that's like, they do want create austere modern, and I'm happy to do that for them. A lot of those type of clients don't really come to KGA because that's kind of just a different personality type, to be honest. But is this the picture?
Well, this is just one of them. So this is actually a remodel we did. Okay. It was an addition on both sides of the house, and then we went through the main section of the house. And I think, how it makes me feel is, man, I want to live in that space. It's pretty, it's like a mid-mod. Mid-mod? Is that the right word?
But it's got modern vibe. Yeah. Mid-century modern, but the kind of contemporized a little. Yeah.
But what I like, but I think you could have great architecture and really ugly furniture.
Yeah, so, I love the furniture here.
That's how, you go in afterwards, and after the Marshall Fire, we kind of go get some pictures, and they're like, we spent all our money on the house. This is all the furniture and you're just like, cool. We'll wait on pictures.
Yeah, we'll wait. You can put it together.
But they're figuring it out. But when you can combine the architectural spatial vibe and the interior to match, that's when you're just like, oh yeah. And not every, it's kind of funny because some architects will be like, hey, I do the architectural and the interior design. Other ones are like, no, it's architectural. We'll let the interior design professionals who stay current on everything. Yeah. And sometimes I'll get some cool plans, and then we'll have a designer, and then I'm like, man, these just don't align.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm like, okay, this is going to be interesting.
Yeah. So we like to get everybody in early. But we are the type of firm that doesn't have interiors in-house. We get asked that a lot. And I've worked in both environments, and I think there's pros and cons to both. Yeah. But the biggest thing is if everybody can get on the same page early and communicate, work comes out pretty good. Yeah. So I love this. I think, so there's a couple big things I think here. I like to put bridges in the house a lot, and it has a bridge up there over the stairs. Yeah. And I'm assuming that separates more bedrooms from the master. So on a floor plan, that's fun to kind of separate the two. There's, threes right to left, right? There's organization. But then what's really strong here is the kitchen being at a separate ceiling height abutting that 2-story space in that grand room. It makes the kitchen is a much more personal, enclosed activity for a human. So having that not out in the open in 2-story spaces, pretty significant. I would venture to guess that the sitting living area in this house doesn't get used very often. Because that is a space that, while cool, is not one that you're going to go sit in a really long time in that 2-story vault with all that glass. There's not a whole lot of enclosure opportunities, but it could be a place to go hang out and chill. They haven't even set it up in a way that it's organized as TV area or anything too. So I think it'd be
open,
really functional. Yeah. But yeah, that's a really pretty, and I love this monorail stair. I'm a sucker for stairs and wood and the wood paneling.
And it was interesting because our designer was like, oh, we got this. We're like, all right, how do we do this cost effectively? Mm-hmm. So we just painted the wall black behind it.
Okay.
And then just did the walnut strips, you know?
Well, I'm interested. So it's not like shiplap or anything. It's just...
This is about 10 years ago.
Okay.
So, and that's what I like is some of the designs you're like, hey, that was 10 years ago. And it's not, oh, we're going to get tired of white cabinets.
Yeah.
You know?
I think that's a really strong design element because and the way that they did it offset.
Yeah.
It like bisects that wall in positive and negative, but it also bridges like what's going on in the right with the hall and bridge. So it creates like a lot of balance even though it's asymmetrical.
Some warmth. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Let's look at another one, Ben.
More colors.
Yeah.
Oh, that's really nice.
So this is a big great room, right?
It's a really beautiful kitchen. I think I want it a little more enclosed.
Yeah.
Personally. And I think the ceiling height could come down a little bit.
Okay.
But the wood wrap on the hood, and they brought in a lot of earth tones. The stone's beautiful. On the backsplash, that full height.
Yeah.
And that view, my goodness.
Yeah, I mean, you could put me in a tough shed out there and I'd be happy.
That's the thing about Colorado. When you get a property like that, it's like you can't mess it up as long as you don't like forget about the view.
The indoor outdoor on this, and there's a big outdoor spit covered on the other side, and I mean beautiful.
It seems like I see a pool out there too.
Yeah, there's a pool, and I mean it's just like wow, and it's a baker's kitchen.
Okay.
So, I mean
I mean she has 4 ovens.
Yeah.
Or he, sorry.
I mean she one island is hers and the other one is his.
Okay.
That's how they did it.
Okay.
Right. So she's like, all right, I just want a big one. And he's like, well, I want one with a sink. And so, they both are amazing cooks. So that's fun.
It's always nice to have owners who actually cook in the kitchen. Sometimes you do these really grand kitchens and you're like, I know that they don't cook very much.
I had one of the largest appliance packages on, it was a remodel. And I'm like, how much are you going to spend? And I'm like, oh, do you love to cook? She's like, no, I don't cook. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah, it's like
hey, it's your home.
Show kitchen, but yeah, I'm like, oh man, but don't you want to use that appliance? But I like to cook.
Yeah, so that's awesome. So let's see one more. Oh, that's a little ADU.
Oh yeah,
that's just a small space.
It is a small space, and something that happens in ADUs and apartments all the time that drives me crazy, but I don't have any great answers of how to not do it because it always ends up being this way. With efficient spaces is, the front doors right into the kitchen.
Right.
And for me, and those are things like at our office across everything we design, we have a couple trying never to walk right into a kitchen from the front door. And then if you have an owner's entry, like entry from a garage, that's never the laundry room. Because you don't want to go see your chores the first thing you walk in the door. So that's one thing where it's like, used to do like combined mudroom and laundry. It's like just get the washer dryer behind a door at least. Yeah. And in here, like if there is a way to do the layout without the door into the kitchen, but
you're talking 450 square feet, or maybe this is 550.
It's like impossible. Yeah. And that's why apartments get set up that way, and why you end up with it. We've drawn ADUs and we end up with the same thing. Yeah. So I'm griping about something I don't have a solution for. Yeah. But this vaulting is really nice. The vaulting in there really opens up that space and makes it feel a lot bigger than it probably is at 550
square feet. But yeah, cool. Yeah, so spaces, I mean, when I walk into a home now, I'm going to be much more thoughtful about why do I feel this?
I think I think there's something really valuable and beautiful when people start thinking about how they're living and how they're feeling kind of in general, but with architecture especially, once you kind of pull back that curtain, you start thinking about it. It really does change how you experience and are aware of your environment, which I think is really great.
What happened in the 70s and 80s? In architecture?
We could ask Steve Combs. He was probably building back then.
Like the steps in floors and
like levels and levels and I think that we were just in this transition, and especially in Colorado, like we just were in this transitionary point where we weren't really aware of what we were doing, and there's a lot of experimentation.
Yeah. That's fun.
The tri-level, bi-level, just walk into a house, go upstairs. You sit in retrospect, you're like, why? How does that even happen?
Well, yeah, I'm like, why did this split level, like, was it efficient to build? Because this was like in the late 70s, early 80s that these were coming out. And you're just like.
Well, you were coming out of post-World War II building. We're experimenting with wood frame construction more than we ever have before. Yeah. We're coming out of smaller square foot homes. So when I think about the house I grew up in, which is a bi-level, it's really just a 2-story house, right? Without a basement. Like now it's like you go get a 2-story house in Colorado and it has an unfinished basement. That ends up being a lot of square footage. But so I think part of it was economy of square footage. So they're just trying to stack and be efficient, and then also trying to keep things as open as possible, which was kind of part of the coming out of that mid-century modern era. Yeah. But yeah, to me, it's one of those things you look back at it and you're like, man, what is the rationale? But I also look forward to, in 50 years, a bunch of, architects much smarter than me look back and are like, man,
what was he thinking?
What was this guy doing?
No, 50, that's interesting. Okay, so we'll try and wrap up with this question, but not 50 years. Let's go 100 years out from now. Not George Jetson, but what do you think the residential building landscape might look like? Just dream a little.
Man, that's a good question. So in 100 years...
Let me preface it a little bit, if that's the right word. You think about the code changes that have happened over the last 25, 30 years, the building technologies that are coming out, the things, the lack of affordability now in building. What's it going to look like in 100 years?
Man, I think what's hard about the 100-year question goes back even to things like the resiliency I'm talking about, which is very reactive to things changing in our climate and with technology. So in 100 years, a lot of it is going to be shaped by what happens in our climate and energy production and probably like fossil fuel, carbon footprint stuff.
Water
availability. I mean, in Colorado, in 100 years, who gets water? What's the population like and who has the rights? All of those things are going to be really big drivers, I think. Humans are always going to be pursuing beauty, because that's what we do. And so I think the architecture, from an aesthetic standpoint, what it looks like, we'll see stylistic differences. I think over the next 50 to 75 years, we're going to see a lot of what we're seeing right now, where everything is kind of a combination of new and old. We're seeing traditional architecture come back in a significant way, but be contemporized in a lot of areas. That will continue, I think. And then from like how the house is built, I'm super curious because I don't think we're going to be doing it in the same way at all in 100 years. I don't think we're going to be doing wood light frame construction for 95% of things like we're doing now. Whether that's houses getting 3D printed or built in a factory and panelized and using different materials, I think we're going to see a lot more of that. And it's hard for me, like if I knew what that would be, I would be really rich in a few years because I'd be investing in those companies, because there's a lot doing that right now. And there's a lot of people seeking economy and efficiency and kind of the future of building, because historically we lag. Like we shouldn't really just be building out of 2x4s and 2x6s ad nauseum with all the developments we've had over the 50 years.
Yeah.
But we'll see a bit of that. And I think what I've really thought from like how a house functions is I think with water return, I think with water scarcity, energy stuff, I think we'll see houses be almost contained into their own systems a lot more frequently. And how that functions and works, I'm not sure, but I could see it, one being that not very much water leaves a house anymore, right? Like that we're building them almost like you're going to go live in Antarctica or the moon, that water is recycled in home, that a lot of different things and amenities and conveniences are right there. Jetson style, maybe. Yeah. Maybe it's not like the instant food oven, but maybe you get dry cleaning done like in the dryer or something, or in a cabinet next to it. And that water doesn't leave. Your energy use is probably self-contained to the property. Yeah.
Production and use.
And what that is, who knows? I mean, is it solar? I don't know. But there's so many people invested in seeking out solutions to these and new inventions that I just see that like the production and reducing the energy consumption of other things. In 100 years, I don't know if we're going to have gas plumbed to any houses anymore.
One of the things that I talked to an investor, and there's a lot of people trying to hack the building industry, right? And the biggest disruptor for that for that happening is the municipalities and independent zoning, independent code reviews. And they're like, oh, well, you can't do this in this town. So how can you mass produce at a more cost-effective level
if everybody's different?
Everything, I think the municipal code variations and interpretations and allowables, I think at least at a state level should be more organized.
I know, and I'm a huge fan of the Western spirit of home rule and but I also am kind of in that boat where, and there's been a lot of movement across the country starting to go in this direction because it's in response to the housing crisis we're experiencing right now. Governor Polis like tested the waters on this like a year or two ago. But the idea that basically, jurisdictions don't have the right to provide any like planning, zoning guidelines or their own plan books. And that it has to be governed by a base level at the state level, unless it's like in an HOA, right? That makes perfect sense, right? Like an HOA has specific guidelines on how the development was built and how the people are buying those houses because that's the way that they like it to look. And I think for the most part, I think that we'll probably end up going in that direction where it starts, and I have very good friends who are planners, but to me, it's like I open up a municipal code set and planning, and everybody's different. It's governed. It was written by somebody else. It's not in the office. All of the planners are writing everything or governing their reviews based on this plan set. There's no real public input on anything unless it's like dezoning stuff. Sometimes you'll get big outcry and city council's like, put it on hold. But for the most part, these have gone through without any public really or any education people dealing with it. It's a staffed position. So it's not like these jobs they're voted in either, right? And so what I've seen happening is almost like a form of activism of people's ideas of how things should be built or how a property should be used, which feels a little anti-American to me sometimes, where I'm like, why are we creating this invisible bulk plane and turning it at like nobody really knows how can see this, it's you get into weird minutia. All of the diagrams are, perfect 90-degree rectangle or square for this theoretical property. And then we're creating all the rules around this diagram. but there's no property that's a perfect rectangle. And the moment that you have the front property line be 30 degrees different than the rear property line, it creates a bunch of gray area. And we just sit around on minutia, and it adds 2 months onto building something just with planning review sometimes. And if you're doing a big development, it's years.
Yeah.
And who pays for those years of all the fees, all the impacts, waiting to build, the escalation?
It hurts.
Yeah,
we've done it.
And then the developer has to pass it on to the future buyer because they're not going to just sell it at a loss because then they wouldn't be in business anymore.
It's a for-profit business still.
So there's a lot of systemic things that I think are going to get cleaned up.
I hope so, because it is, you have seven different languages in the 25 minutes that just right here that we work in. That each municipality, it's like you got to learn a different language. And so it's not, I mean, they're similar, but you're just like,
they're all different.
They're all different. And you're, so like if you were to do a 3D printed house and you got this plan and everything's set up, but then you're like, oh, this town says the offsets are this and, the solar shadow has to be here. And you're just like,
I love the solar shadow diagrams.
Yeah.
Those are my favorite. We did some in Carbondale, and we had to get points for everything, and it's this tiny project site, and we made changes to the architecture that you're like, this makes the architecture worse, and we would have just cast a little extra shadow on this neighbor's yard and like an area on their landscape that is rock next to a house, portion of the house that has no window. So it's like, but you can't do it because it's the rules.
Yeah.
But you're like, it doesn't change anything.
It's crazy. Well, hey, it's been awesome getting to pick your brain and hear about,
thanks for having me.
Your perspective on architecture, how you do it. And in 100 years, they're still going to be using the 3 and 9 patterns. Right.
Yeah, we're going to be drawn to those same patterns as long as humans exist.
Yeah.
Without severely altering our brain chemistry.
And tell the rest of the guys and the crew over at the KGA office, thank you for letting you break away and hang out with us on this. And man, this has been fun. So look forward to getting to hang out and talk more. So,
yeah, absolutely.
right, cool.
I really appreciate it.